Time to look back at the last Forge FC contest.
Simply stunning stuff. Finally, their goal.
Here is Match and Review.
My word, what a rocket.
With Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network.
Hey, Forge fans, Anthony Urciuoli with you. Jessica Lisi joins us as well. Match in Review, Forge FC with a 2-1 victory over Cavalry at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. And I always say, I think I say every time that it's a huge win for Forge, but this was definitely the hugest. If don't email me and correct me, I know it's not a word, but it was the hugest of all the wins. And I don't think I've ever struggled this much to find a singular talking point, because this match had it all. Red cards, you had the goals, you had the action. And Jess, this was a rare time, with the CPL, whenever Forge plays especially, and we've seen a lot of Forge this year, they always seem to be playing a team that plays in a low block, that kind of sits back and tries to beat Forge on the counter. This was a rare instance where we had two clubs that play very similar attacking styles. And I think it says a lot that neither club changed their approach. They went out there, said, we're going to play our game regardless of what the other club did. And it showed, because this match had everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was very visible that they both had the utmost respect for each other as teams.
Right.
Before the match, they showed the two coaches showing each other a sign of respect. So there's definitely, a mutual respect there. They're both great teams. As you saw in the play, it was a super entertaining match to watch. And it says a lot, the fact that they didn't want to change what they were both good at. It works for them. And, Forge has been struggling recently to do what they're good at. They haven't been executing. So to see them come out today and get that big win is super exciting.
Yeah. So it was an interesting, so first, again, there's so much to talk about. So Tristan Henry, his 100th match, played fantastic. Dominic Samuel, also his 100th match, but the Forge is going to honor him at a later date. They didn't want both to have to share the day. So Dominic Samuel's getting his, and he played fullback instead of his usual center back spot. And it was interesting. And maybe you can shed some more light on this, because both flanks Forge attacked differently, but there was something on the right side they were attacking, and David Chouanier and Rama were the two kind of manning that flank, and it paid off early. Chouanier, we've been kind of critical of Forge's starts recently, but they started exactly how they wanted to. And of course, it led to the opening goal 10 minutes in from David Chouanier. Beautiful effort, but they chose the right side as what they wanted to attack with. And it paid dividends early.
Yeah, they came out guns blazing today. You could see their energy. You could feel it right from the start. It was a great individual effort by Chouanier. That goal was just fantastic. He was able to, get around that player, use his speed, and then do what he's great at, and that's finish. He was a great strike of the ball, near post finish, which is not easy to do. It was great. He did a fantastic job with that. Overall, I would say that they did a great job at executing going down that right flank. They really did expose Cavalry overall on that side.
And it was funny because I've seen Dominic Samuel play. So played 100 matches. So I've seen him so many times, and it's rare to see him play left back. And I think maybe it's his stature. He's not a tall guy, but he's big. He's built like a truck, and he seems suited well for that center back. So to see him in left back, I did question whether he'd be quick enough, and he surprised me. He has a lot of speed that he's not typically able to show off, but he was there. And what they were doing was, Samuel would push up, and Borges would drift into the middle, playing almost in a 10 spot. Even though he was on the wing, he would drift. And it just tactically, Forge knew exactly how they wanted to attack Cavalry, and they executed it. And it helps when you're playing at home for sure. But Forge looked like a club that was motivated to end that losing streak. And this was not a match they wanted to drop 3 points in, not against Cavalry especially.
Yeah, we've spoken so many times about, really enjoying watching Borges play as a number 10. So to see him shift in there and be able to create a lot within the attack is always great to see. Samuel did a great job out there on the left, regardless of stature. When you're a great player and you're smart, sometimes speed and athleticism is not even a concern. You can outsmart players. And obviously he is very athletic, and he is able to do, all that, like you said, deceivingly fast. But again, In the case where someone isn't, it's still, you can outsmart your opponent. So he's definitely
Right.
a great player overall, and brought a lot to that position today. I thought he did really well. He's very gritty. And his attitude, he gets knocked down a lot. He was on the floor a
Oh,
lot
he was
tonight.
down a lot.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was on the
In
floor a lot
fact,
tonight.
that's a good segue, because while you say that, Bobby Smyrniotis pointed that out. He put his body on the line tonight, and he gave it his all. And
Yeah.
that's what Bobby expects from a guy like Samuel. So here's the coach post-match.
To move things around, we know Cavalry likes to use the outsides a little bit. Ash was holding on to a knock. The same thing with Kwesi Poku. And the one thing we've learned about Dom, he's a man for special missions. And when you need him to do something, he does a great job at that. And I think he's done it again as well today, putting his body on the line a lot of times, physically. But that's who he is. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get the fight out of him. And to be honest, in the first half, we got some great runs up that left side from him, and that gave us a little bit of some movement on the wide area, because for a physical guy and a big guy, he's quite quick. Not many people see that.
So as we mentioned, this match had it all. It had red cards. Two straight reds. One was 2 yellows that led to a red in the 95th minute. And we'll break all of that down. But it is kind of a shame that, a match like this with two clubs, that the rivalry. By the way, I do need to point this out, because every time these two clubs meet, the players, the coaches all kind of say the same thing. Oh, it's just another match. I've been on the sideline many times. This was not a regular match. From the opening whistle, you mentioned the coaches' mutual respect, but the second that whistle went, it was so intense on the pitch, just the coaches on the sidelines as well. And after that goal, because you wonder how a team's going to react after they score. Forge, we don't expect them to sit back, and they did not. They continued to press, and Cavalry played the same way. Here's Bobby on just his general assessment of the match, which really did have everything.
In the end, 3 points. That's what matters right now. At this point, for us too, with the results that we've had lately and some misfortune in a couple of the games, 3 points I think are the ultimate for both teams on the pitch, and I think that's why you saw a little bit of an emotional game at some point, which maybe there could have been a little bit more football played. But the 3 points is the most important thing for us, as we see, the last couple of weeks. And I think I've been saying this since the beginning of the season. Every 2 weeks we talk about one thing and the other thing, and I say, in 2 weeks a lot of things change. And that's how it's been. It's a great time to be a neutral and a fan in the CPL, to see what's going on. For us, we're happy we've gotten these 3, and it gets us just a little bit closer to where we need to be.
So Forge went into the half with a 1-0 lead, and they built on it. 52nd minute, it was Abu Sissoko putting Forge ahead by 2. So Forge looking comfortable here. Cavalry, though, made things interesting. Musi with a spectacular goal in the 63rd minute, just completely changed. It's funny how one goal, even though you have it, well, you've said this before, that 2-0 is one of the most difficult leads in the sport, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is. A lot of times when someone scores that second goal, they sit back, you get comfortable with your lead. When you have a 1-0 lead, you're very well aware that this can change at any given moment. It takes one mess up. But when it's a 2-0 lead, it's the same thing. It takes a team to score one goal, and then the momentum shifts. And now you almost feel like you're chasing, even though you do have that lead, because that momentum has shifted to the other team. I do just want to say that Sissoko was solid today.
Yeah.
I feel like he covered every inch of that field. He was all over the place. So, congrats to him for getting that goal, because it was definitely well earned. Pacius, it was a great play by him. He was able to draw that man in, play it to Becker, and spin out to get that ball again. And then Sissoko with the rebound. But overall, it's just a great play. But I definitely wanted to, hats off to Sissoko, because he was great today. He was definitely someone that stood out.
He's been so good this year, but when you talk about a box-to-box midfielder, is that what we're talking about, a player like Sissoko? Because you have to have an energy level and endurance. He played the full, ended up being 96 minutes. I mean, that's not easy to do as a midfielder that covers as much ground as he does.
No, it's definitely not. A lot of it is obviously fitness, and people will say that, but a lot of it is a mentality thing. And I think there aren't a lot of players that are able to do that for the extent of 96 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever the time may be, a lot of people are only able to give their short period of time because their mentality falls off as the match goes on, whether that's because, your team's up 2 goals or you're losing, whatever it may be. It's definitely a mentality thing. So yeah, he is definitely somebody that embodies that, that box to box midfielder. He definitely has the mentality.
It's weird to see Forge sit back into a shell and defend, but they had no choice because in the 70th minute, Captain Kyle Becker gets sent off, straight red, and now it's an interesting final 20 plus minutes because Cavalry pressed and
yes,
Forge, they made all the substitutions. They used all 5. Daniel Krutzen came off, who we do have to talk about. He played 75 minutes. Now, he hasn't played since the end of last year. For him to jump in, and he's not just jumping into any kind of match, he's jumping into a match that's high octane, high intensity. I'm going to play you what Bobby said post-match and also what Daniel Krutzen said post-match, because this was a case where, and just maybe you can relate to this, if it's been a long layoff and you do come back and you maybe feel a little rusty, the team thought it was best for Krutzen to start rather than be subbed in later on, because I think, is it maybe hard to just kind of catch up to the feeling of the game? Is it better just to start, quickly get up to speed, and then come off rather than jumping in, mid-match when it's already been played at a high level?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're somebody who has been off for a while, it is much easier to start off and get the flow of the game, get into it. Obviously, if he was playing poorly and he was the reason for a mistake and a goal, you're able to pull him off and make that switch, and you still have plenty of time to catch up. Obviously, that didn't happen. He was absolutely great today. He was very solid, didn't look like he had been off. So, props to him. He was great. But yeah, it is much easier to be able to start when you've been off versus coming into a match that's such high intensity like today would have been. To come into that as a sub, you need to bring the energy, and, you just have to have a different mentality. And sometimes when you're coming off injury, you have nerves, you have all these things running through your head. You feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, whether that's from teammates because they know you're great and they want you to live up to that standard, or it's also your own standard. So yeah, I would have to agree that it would be a better thing to start after you've been off for a while versus coming in to be a game changer.
Yeah, and I think he mentioned in this. Yeah, well, I don't have to tell you what he mentioned. We can play it. So let's start with Daniel Krutzen.
Oh man, it was amazing. Yeah, I was kind of surprised getting thrown into the game just like that, but yeah, it was amazing. Just this crowd is amazing. The fans are great. Yeah, it feels just like same old.
Yeah, so I think you played almost 75 minutes. So to be thrown in, I mean, all that time off, and then a match like this that was so intensity was high. Was it almost better to start rather? Because I think, would it be tougher coming in as a sub in a match like this? Or?
Yeah, I had a conversation with the coach, and I think we both agreed on that. Especially for me personally, I think that would be a better thing to get back into playing minutes. And yeah, it was a fun last 20 minutes. So it would have been a bit different if I were to come in the 75th.
I had to admit post-match to Bobby Smyrniotis that I forgot how good Daniel, and I was embarrassed to admit it, but I forgot how good Krutzen was. And it's not just his defending, but it's his vision, his ability to make plays from that center back position. And he doesn't need a lot of touches. It's just so much smoother when he's out there. And it's not taking anything away from the center backs that Forge have. It's just a different element they're able to bring out there. And Bobby himself said it after the match that Krutzen is the best center back in the CPL.
Yeah, I think I've said from the first year he's the best central defender this league has seen. There's no question, and this is no knock to anybody else. But this is a guy that can play football. This is a guy who's physical. This is a guy who wins tackles. In the first half, I think he's won 4 or 5 challenges in the middle of the field, and he hasn't been on the pitch playing a game since early December, late November. So it just speaks to his quality. It's always tough bringing a player back in from injury. You want to say, how do I get this guy minutes? And, do you throw Daniel Krutzen in the 60th minute when everything is going on? Or is the best way to get him a start, get him into the game? And I thought, that was the right thing to do today, and we're happy with his performance. And he's obviously gonna help us as we move forward.
So Forge was forced to defend after that red card to Becker, trailing, or rather, they had a 2-1 lead. So at least they were in position where they could rely on their defense. Tristan Henry was, again, amazing in this match. Just to go through, we didn't really go through the stats here, but possession, as you'd expect, Forge played down a man for extended period of time. So Cavalry did jump out and win the possession battle at 53%. Shot attempts, 11-9 in favor of Cavalry. Shots on target, 4-3 in favor of Cavalry. So Tristan Henry saw, and these were difficult saves, and he made them. And some ones late in stoppage time as well that were able to secure the 3 points for Forge FC. The fouls, well, we should talk about the cards. I think that's the key here. So the red cards, Cavalry had 2 by the end of it. Forge had 1. Both clubs had 3 yellows. Now, Kyle Becker, this will be interesting because he gets the 1 match ban, but based on CPL rules, he could be looking at 3 more as well after that. So not to have your captain through the final stretch here we don't know how. I mean, Bobby will tell you there's enough quality players that can step in, but when you lose your captain for an extended period of time, especially as you're down in a playoff race as Forge is, we'll see how it impacts them, but it's not always pretty. So we'll see how that works out. I will say this at the end of it, I think the frustration and you heard Bobby earlier, maybe Jesse, maybe you can speak to this, but as an official who knows the league, he's officiated plenty of matches in the CPL. You do wonder, though, these 2 clubs are playing, it could get chippy. Is there a way to take control of the match early so that it doesn't get out of hand? I mean, can you prevent the red cards early if you're an official by just taking control and maybe, was it through warnings, bookings? How can you handle that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when you have a rival match, you're able to see the grittiness and that fight in both teams right from the start. Today was very transparent. Both teams had, they didn't like each other. Not to say that they don't respect each other, but that respect brings out a different sort of competitiveness. They both knew.
I would even go as far as to say, is it just in the context of on the pitch? I mean, these 2 clubs play like they hate each other. I know they don't. When the whistle's over, it's done. But the way it looked on the pitch and down at field level, I mean, these are 2 teams that do not like each other.
I mean, throughout my career, I've had teams that I say I hate playing them. You're excited to play them. Obviously, it has nothing to do with the people on the team, but in that moment, once you step between those lines, you absolutely hate your opponent. You want to do everything to pick them apart and beat them. So you definitely saw that from both sides today. The grittiness again was there right from minute 1. So yeah, I do think from an official standpoint, if you're calling those, you're giving those warnings and you're calling those fouls, you're not letting little things slide that are chippy, that will, create retaliation. You saw that a lot of retaliation was a massive thing today. You have one person fouling a teammate and then bam, you have the other teammate stepping in to, come to the defense. And that's how things get out of hand. And it becomes okay, well, I'm going to show you next time you get the ball. So it just becomes a competitiveness and it gets out of hand oftentimes. So yes, from an official standpoint, he definitely could have spoken earlier and prevented those red cards, because he allowed it to get out of hand, and tried to step in a little too late.
Yeah. And Bobby expanded on that. And he also, we always kind of say Bobby gets it. He understands. And he mentioned, it was interesting after the match because he did point out this league is still considered new, especially with those 2 COVID seasons sandwiched in between. And if you're a neutral supporter, if you're a Forge fan, if you're a Cavalry fan, I mean, this is reason to buy tickets and come out to a match or, subscribe to One Soccer. Or, I think the physicality of it maybe is not something you necessarily want to always showcase, but in the context of the battle and where these 2 teams are in the standings and their history, the match it was a great story overall in that sense. And so Bobby expanded on the red cards and how exciting it was for the fans after the match.
Yeah, the one thing I want to say about the cards is, to be honest, I think there's situations in the first half that if they're dealt with, we don't have what's happened in the second half. And, sometimes, and I don't know what it is, but Ramas kicked the ball after the play and he gets a yellow card, but there's players being punched in the face, kicked in the face, and there's no cards. So sometimes I think, that allows certain things to happen in the game. and it happens within the weeks of all the games, and that leads to these situations in the second half, right? And so I'd rather go at those points. I think it's sometimes better to set the tempo right from the beginning, and maybe that allows a little bit more football to be played, more entertaining football for the big crowd that's come here and the crowd that's watching on One Soccer.
Probably just one for me. I know there's been a lot of teams sitting quite deep often in the last few weeks. How refreshing was it to see two teams go toe-to-toe? How much was it to enjoy that kind of game?
Yeah, I think the biggest question is, I'd like to ask and I won't get the answer, but the fans, did they enjoy it? I think the fans enjoy it. I think, we're building a league, and this is my personal opinion. We're building a league, we're building clubs. I think we need to entertain. At least that's my way of doing it, and there's different ways to get games, but I think that's the one thing you'll get out of a lot of times Forge and Cavalry. They're entertaining from a tactical end, sometimes a little bit physical, but I think there's a lot of good football being played, and not a lot of teams waiting for another one. But there's always a way to get 3 points, and everyone does it differently. But I think for the supporters of the league and the growth of this game, I think we need more entertaining games.
All right, so looking at the table as we're in crunch time now in the CPL regular season. So Atletico Ottawa still in first place with 40 points after 23 matches. Forge, though, now just 1 point back. They are level on matches. Cavalry, a point back. Forge and Cavalry's played one extra match. So Forge in the driver's seat there. We've been talking a lot about Forge's struggles. This did not look like the same club we were watching. And you've said this, I don't know how many times during that skid of Forge, that it just did not look like Forge FC.
Yeah.
This one looked a little more like them.
Yeah, I we talked about it quite a few times in the last 4 matches that they didn't seem to play their style. Their style is very much, the 1-2 touches. Their movement off the ball is great. And in those last 4 matches, it wasn't. They seemed to be forcing. They seemed to be not dealing with the pressure of Valor, for example, in the last few matches very well. But overall, today, I saw glimpses of the old Forge. I would say that, their DNA came out today, and it was great. It was from minute 1 all the way to the last minute, whether that was through subs or people who were starting the match. I think their mentality was on today. I don't know if that's because of who the opponent was, if it was that competitiveness, that rival, it brought out the best in them. Sometimes it takes your rival to get you back on track. And then it could also be the fact that they were able to connect really early on in the game with Schwanier's goal. 10 minutes into the match, you're able to get that momentum. You have that confidence. Okay, we got this. Whereas they struggled in the past matches to really find the back of the goal. So yeah, overall, I would say that their mentality today, their energy, it was great. And we've said in the last matches, it wasn't a lack of effort. You could see the effort. They were creating the chances. It just wasn't on. They weren't connecting. So today I felt like everything had come together. Those 4 matches were just a bit of a rut that they were in. And I think they'll go up from here.
And just we didn't really go through the 3 keys to the match because they pretty much nailed them all. I mean, it was, to make sure that your home field is make it a place where teams are, almost scared to come to, like, oh no, we have to go to Hamilton. That's almost, we're almost a guaranteed loss type thing. And
right.
Forge hadn't been as good at home as maybe they've been better at home than they were on the road. But I thought they thought they could have been better. And so they definitely set the tone at home here, especially with that early goal. And one of the keys was don't think. And to your point, when Forge is on their game, it's happening fast. It's very instinctual. The quality of the players shows because they're not taking that extra unnecessary touch. They're not overthinking. They're just playing. And to your point, that's exactly what it looked like. Yeah,
today showcased their talent, their individual talents. Again, I keep coming back to Schwanier's goal, but that really showcased his individual abilities. We spoke about Sissoko being solid, from box to box. So overall, I would just say there was a lot of great individual performances, but today you saw that Forge DNA, that team culture really come out. And it was a really exciting match to watch.
And it may have also, Bobby said that he thought the difference was that this looked like a team that had their backs against the wall. There was a bit of a fight or flight instinct that took over in Forge today. And also, it doesn't hurt that you get Daniel Krutzen back. I mean, that's just to get the morale up after a difficult stretch, a key component to your championship seasons. And for him to return, that doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, absolutely. He made a big difference today. Again, they have been solid overall, I would say, in the back. Not to knock anybody, throughout the season, they have been great without him, but he definitely did make a difference. You touched upon it. A lot of center backs are able to make those quick passes, but he brings something different. He is able to make those quick passes when he does have the ball and he has space in front of him. He takes it. He's not forcing his decisions, and he's not, taking too long on the ball, where people are making their runs and then the run's not available anymore. So he's just overall a really smart player, really solid defensively and offensively. So yeah, he definitely made a big difference and added confidence to Forge's back line tonight.
Absolutely. So Forge now, as I mentioned, they head to Pacific. They have, let's do my math is not very easy for me, but they have 5 matches
I'm not
left.
helping you with this one.
5 matches left. Majority of those are at home. So they really needed this one to set the tone. Now they're in a really good position going forward as we head down the stretch of the regular season. All right. Jessica Lisi, fantastic as always. I thought I was adequate.
Yeah.
This is where you come. This is
I
where
would I would say you were adequate.
Okay. That sums it up. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Forge FC, your final 2-1 victory over Cavalry at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. We'll talk to you soon.
This has been Match in Review with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. For the latest on all things Forge FC, subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.